Hello, welcome to Docklands Day 2, 2019. I hope you're here to see the show's The Thing, because that's what we're showing, and we're very excited to have this film. We have with us the two directors, Molly Bernstein and Philip Dolan. What's so amazing about this film, and also true for the short that we're going to be showing prior to it, so we'll have more about Molly and Philip in a minute, but both these films really epitomize what's so amazing about documentaries. And that documentaries find stories or incidents that would go unnoticed if it wasn't for the incredible filmmakers who do that. We have Molly and Philip with us, and we're going to have them say a few words, and then we're going to bring up the short filmmaker. So, Molly Bernstein, Philip Dolan.
Hi. Thanks, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for inviting us. It's great, especially to be in the home of Bill Graham, who's a big character in the film. And also we have our executive producer, Kathy Greenwald's here, who's a San Franciscan, and just wanted to point her out. And we'll talk after, right?
Please stay after. We're going to have a question and answer with a character who's in the film, Danny Sher, and another person that worked with Bill Graham, Jerry Pompili.
Another character.
Another character. The movie's filled with characters, and we're so glad you're here, and we're so thrilled to be in Marin County. And let's watch the movie.
Okay.
And the short.
And the short.
Thank you.
So, Underexposed is the short that we're going to show. And it's an incredible film, one that relates to what I was just talking about. There are so many incredible artists around who you may not be aware of. So without further ado, I'd like you to meet the filmmaker, Doug Walker.
Hey, everybody. First of all, thank you. I've seen a lot of familiar faces, and I always appreciate the support. I'm really proud to be here. It's a short. It's a very powerful story that I've been filming for 4 years that I just was like, just get a short done and tell this story and start sharing it with people, because it's a really beautiful story about a man who made a real impact on rock and roll photography. And his name's Alvin Meyerowitz, and I brought him here tonight. And you know, feel free tonight to say hello to him and maybe thank him for what he captured, and maybe this piece of film will allow to expose more of his work and get him known. You'll see, he's been hiding for a long time. So it's a real story, it's a documentary, and that's what documentary films are. So I hope you enjoy it. So thank you.
Thank you, Doug. So immediately following the short, we're going to go into the feature, The Show's The Thing. Then we'll be back here in a Q&A with Molly and Philip and Danny and Jerry. I'd like to thank KCBS and Alice Radio for allowing us to show and helping us show The Show is the Thing. And now it's my pleasure to welcome back the directors. I'd like to welcome back Molly and Philip, and from BGP Presents, Danny Sher and Jerry Pompili.
Thank you.
Here they come.
There they come, the characters. Well, thank you all for coming down here. I got to ask you, Molly and Philip, you know, this is one of those stories that people unappreciated to some degree what was going on at that time. What made you do this film?
Well, actually, the idea of the film was brought to us by Winston Simone, who is in the film briefly, a veteran music manager who was the manager of Ricky Jay, a brilliant sleight of hand artist and historian of magic and actor who recently passed away, sadly. But in the course of making that film, Deceptive Practice, we got to know Winston very well, and he said, look, they're these guys that everyone in the music business knows who they are, and most of them couldn't have had careers without them, but the general public don't know who they are and they're real characters, and we thought it sounded great, so we started interviewing them.
Yeah, and I'm actually from Cleveland, and so when the name Belkin Brothers came up, it clicked, because I hadn't thought about them for years, but I realized they had total control of the market. They booked every show every weekend, and they really contributed a lot to the cultural life of the city. But the point was, all the musicians know these guys. Everyone knows these guys. You can't have a career without them, but yet no one else knows about them. So it seemed like a good untold chapter in rock and roll history.
So Danny and Jerry, I don't get the feeling that you guys felt unappreciated at the time.
Let's start with Jerry here. I'm just blown away by the. Is it on? Is it on?
Yeah, it's okay.
Where's Bill? Yeah, I don't usually need a microphone. I was blown away by the film. I thought about 99% of the time, most people were telling the truth. One correction, though. The official capacity of Winterland was not 6,200, it was 5,400, and we never went a person over.
5,400. Well, we'll definitely change that.
No, that was Tom Ross who said that.
Right. Yeah. Well, we got so many stories.
Okay.
There were so many stories where we got 5 different versions of the story from different people. So we had to kind of flip a coin a lot of the time.
That happened a lot.
I want to I want to say one story about we talked about how we lost the Rolling Stones concert over the $2 million, and yeah, but here's the story. Yeah, I don't think you were in the meeting. We did the Stones tour, I think, in '81.
And 82.
Yeah, in Europe in '82, and I remember I was the guy who putting the numbers together, and I remember for the '81 tour we offered them I think $23 million. That was the deal, guaranteed $23 million, and they did it. We came to the '86 tour. Was it '85 or '86? Whenever it was, and we came up. And the story's going to tell you more about Bill actually, and I'm doing the numbers, and I remember saying, okay, we can give them $63 million. And yeah, 63 million, and I figured it all out.
That's the price of one ticket.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay. So we're in this meeting, and then we hear, Bill, you got to come up to 65. You got to come up $2 million. And there were 3 of us in the meeting, me, Bill, and the president, a guy named Nick. And I said, give him the fucking $2 million. He said, and so Bill starts talking to me like he wishes he could talk to Mick Jagger. What do you mean $2 million? You act like $2 million is 50 cents. I said, Bill, it is. At this level, it's not the difference between making and losing. We're either going to make a lot or lose a lot. But if $2 million gets us the Stones, then give it to him. I won't give it to him, and we lost the Stones. Bill comes into my office the next day. He closes the door. And he said, and he rarely second guessed us, and he shut the door. He said, "I'll never disagree with you again on a deal," and it was moving.
He did. He would disagree with you again. That was the nature of the beast.
But we wouldn't lose the act.
Right, I know. Whenever you went to Bill with a new idea to do something, the first thing out of his mouth is, what will it cost? Except when it had something to do with audience safety. Then he never asked how much it cost.
But there was something else. I don't want to get in the way of this, but there was something else about Bill that if you did it right, that was important. There was a show that I wanted to do after we opened Shoreline, New Orleans by the Bay, and it was my version of the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival on the West Coast. And the show, the first year, the show was an absolute disaster. It was one of the top, to this day, one of the top 10 losses of my career. I mean, it was a disaster. And Bill comes in my office the next day and shuts the door again. And I said, okay, Bill, I know how much money we lost. I know how we can get it back. I can steal 1,000 from this band and 15, And he said, if you don't do that show again, you're fired. I said, Bill, You should fire me for doing the show. He said, no, you and your fucking money. You forgot to do one thing. You forgot to look at the audience. You don't have a disaster on your hand. You have a hit. Those people are going to go tell their friends, and they're going to come back with 2 people. And Bill was wrong. They came back with 4 people, and it ended up being financially the most successful show we did at Shoreline. But that was Bill. In other companies, I would have been fired. In his company, I would have been fired for not doing it because I was rewarded for doing it right, and that was important to Bill.
I have something that also explains a lot about Bill. I think it was in the early 80s, a friend of his in New York needed help he had bought this big space over on the west side, 10th Avenue and I think 20th Street. And he wanted to open up this roller skating rink called the Roxy Roller Skating Rink, right? And they had a month to the opening and it wasn't coming together, and they called Bill, and Bill and myself and 4 or 5 guys went back to New York, and we got a bunch of the techs from the old Fillmore East together, and we put this thing together and got it opened on time. And opening night, I walked up to Bill and I said, you know, there's one thing I don't understand. Why are we doing a fucking roller skating rink, right? And Bill looked at me and said, it's fun. And that was it. It was about having fun. And he was right. It was fun.
Didn't he have a basketball court at the...
Yeah, the basketball court at the Fillmore West.
But that's, I mean, their stories, we try to show this in the film, that they're always looking for something new, and also they're willing to take risks. And we had a couple stories about people that lost money, but they would lose a lot of money sometimes, but sometimes it seemed that they would know that if they stuck with the act, there'd be loyalty, and then when they hit it big, they'd get to reap the fruits of that.
Yeah, the business was rolling dice. Bill used to say, "It's you roll dice in this business." I think it's one of the reasons that organized crime never got involved in concert promotion, because it was too risky.
I thought they were afraid of Bill.
They found an easier way. The easier way was you print up a bunch of counterfeit T-shirts, hire 2 guys in a truck, and stick them on a corner, and the risk is really low. Even if you get busted, you don't lose that much.
Why don't we
Right.
open it up for some questions from the audience? Give them a chance. Are we have a mic runner, or is it just raise your hand here? Raise your hand.
All right. We'll
Right.
repeat the question.
All right, we will repeat them. Yeah, you're right over there.
I went to so many Winterland concerts. It's my favorite thing to do. But I'm very curious. What did you buy Winterland for, and what did you sell?
The question is, what did
We
you buy?
never owned it. The Ice Follies people owned it.
Winterland, that's where they did the ice skating.
So you rented it.
We rented it. We leased it.
All right, other questions? Just over there in the back.
Hi, the first concert I ever went to
Sounds like Jesse.
Dale's Easter Sunday show back in '65 at the Paramount in New York. And the Hollies played, and Little Richard played with a guy named Jimmy James, who was actually Jimi Hendrix. Oh, wow. And I think the producer of that show was Sid Bernstein, who brought the Beatles in, but you hadn't mentioned him, and I'm wondering what you're thinking about Sid.
Oh, well, we get that question a lot.
Yeah.
Could you repeat that?
I met him. I don't remember that much. We didn't have that much contact with
This
Sid
is about
Bernstein.
Sid Bernstein. Is that the question?
Yeah.
Promoter from New York.
Yeah.
Well, I think he's a seminal figure and brought the Beatles. I think our story kind of begins after the Beatles, you know, because that's kind of what started this wave, and you know, the Beatles shows were famous for having really bad sound and that kind of thing, and so our story is kind of about the people that brought in great sound and the Frank Barcelona people. So it comes a little bit after the story.
And before that, also, there was the Murray the K and the Alan Freed shows. I went to 22 of them in 1957, got thrown out of all of them. The sound was terrible. There was no lighting. There was lighting. Every light in the place was on. There was no stage lighting. And they used the PA that was built into the theater. And it was just, and everyone did 2 songs and left.
And for those of you who from the Bay Area, if you remember the Circle Star Theater, they did a lot of those shows. That's where that was my hangout. That was closer to where I grew up.
Gentleman right here.
Could you comment on the interaction between the San Francisco music scene and Bill
The chicken and the egg thing was the mime troupe and the benefit concert. That's what set the whole thing off. The mime troupe got busted in the park for obscenity and indecency, and they threw a benefit at this loft on Howard Street, and boom, the light went off in Bill's head when he saw the crowd lining up. The funny story about that one is he got a call from Chet Helms, who said, the family dog wants to be involved, and Bill thought it was a dog act.
But speaking of the family dog and Bill, if you were a competitor with Bill, against Bill, and you did it right, he would not try to put you out of business. There was a jazz club in the city called Keystone Corner, and we did 3 benefits, 3 fun. He's still, Todd Barkin, who's a good friend of mine, still screwed it up, but we did 3 benefits for him. One to buy him a liquor license, another to put in an HVAC, but to keep him in business because Todd was doing something that no one else was. So, and he did a benefit for Chet, I think, for Avalon, to keep him in business. So it was not a win-lose with him. It was do it right.
Well, that's part of the charm of Bill Graham. He was such a complicated person, but he had such high standards. He never gave up.
No, I didn't think he would. No.
Additional questions? Okay, right over there in the corner.
So I grew up in Boulder, and Barry Fay was our guy, and I saw a couple of shots of Barry in the.
Yeah.
What was his?
Yeah, you know,
Question is about Barry Fay from.
Yeah, I mean, there's so
Boulder,
many. There were so
Denver.
many promoters. We were in Boulder. We screened the film there, and people were asking us. And we do have a picture of Barry Fay. He sadly passed away before we were doing the film, so we kind of stuck with people we could interview, but we did include him in a couple of photographs.
Bill Graham, Barry Fay. So Barry Fay was like the Bill Graham of Denver. And Barry had at one point, he had some real bad financial problems, and he came into Bill's office and needed money. Yeah, he was a big gambler. And he was either was going to lose his fingers to the, his thumbs, and Bill loaned him a lot. It was a 6-digit number, and the deal was he would get paid back $1,000 a show. And we had to subscribe to the Denver Post to see what shows he was doing to make sure we were.
Now, this may be an inappropriate question, but I understand, and maybe they were a little later, that the Weinstein brothers from Miramax were promoters in Buffalo.
Right, Harvey, not the,
Harvey and his
not the
brother.
brothers. Harvey and Corky. Corky wasn't his brother. Corky Siegel was his partner. Harvey and we did when we did the Stones in '81. They were our partners up in Buffalo and in Washington D.C. We brought them into Washington because the Washington promoter was screwing it up and wasn't doing it right. So we asked them to come in.
So it's your fault. No, I was going to say, so it's your fault.
Right.
Why don't you, the two of you, tell us how you got started with Bill?
Well, yeah. I started in 1968 as an usher at the Fillmore East. I had worked previously down the block at the Anderson Yiddish Theater, and it's a legendary story. I can't go into the whole story about how Bill approached the guy, and the guy turned him down, and then Bill opened up the Fillmore East, and the guy was out of business, and I ended up going to work as an usher, and I was there maybe 2 or 3 months, and I became the house manager. They fired the original house manager, Jeff Albert, I think his name was, and they hadn't decided on one, and in the meantime, I was kind of like running the staff because no one else was doing it, and when they decided who they were going to hire for a new house manager, Kip Cohn, the director, wanted to go up to Broadway and get someone from there. And Bill said, no, that guy, he couldn't remember my name, but he says he's been doing it for the last few weeks, so let's give him the job. So I got
So
the
how'd
job.
you wind up in the West Coast?
I got bored after 2 years. The Fillmore East was running so smoothly you could phone it in. And so I got bored, and Bill said, well, come to the West Coast, which was a real shocker because the Fillmore East is a theater, and the Fillmore West is a ballroom, right? And then, so I ran the Fillmore West and started doing shows at Berkeley Community Theater. Booking, yeah, and I started booking and announcing. Bill threw me up on stage, and
The voice of the Fillmore, yes.
some doing emceeing, and then in 1973, 74, there was this young guy down at Stanford doing shows that was really being a pain in the ass to us. So as soon as he graduated, we hired him.
Can you give us the Cliff Note version there, Danny?
Yeah, I was getting my my MBA down there, and I was doing the shows, the student concerts, starting in 1973, and I was way below the radar. And there was an act at Premier Talent. I heard that Dave Mason was touring, and Premier, and I'm calling Premier, and I'm not, just like they said, you know, they're not taking my calls, they're putting me on hold forever. So on Christmas break of 1974, about the end of December 74, I got on the plane and I went to their office without an appointment and just went in there and sat until someone would see me, and it was Jane Garrity who saw me, who wasn't in there. And I said, you know, I'd like to book Dave Mason, you know, at Stanford. And she said, well, and she looks at her calendar, and I remember that I was in her office on December 20th, and the show, she said, well, we have a date like January 7th, you know, 2 weeks. Can you, you know, I said, I'll do it. And she said, well, it's a lot of money. And I said, we'll pay it. And she said, you cannot advertise in the Chronicle because that would make Bill mad. Okay. So it was like a 10-day, 14-day promotion. And I booked Journey as the opening band. But Journey was just a local band. They didn't even have a record deal then. The show sells out. You know, everything's fine. So the show was January 7th. About 3 months later, I think Jerry first called me, and then he said, would you like, you know, Bill Graham would like to talk to you. So I went up to Bill's office. Oh, no, Bill heard about the show, and he calls Barbara Skydel and Frank Barcelona and starts yelling at them about how could you sell this show to this kid? He doesn't know what the hell he's doing. The sound was a mess. People crashed the gates. You know, it was total mayhem down there. And Barbara said, Bill, I don't know what you're talking about. We haven't heard a single negative thing. The kid seems, you know, he seems okay, and he's graduating and looking for a job, and we kind of like him, and maybe you want to call him and hire him. So I went up to Bill's office in March, and he had all of the shows that I had done down there, which were big shows, and he said, how come I didn't know anything about this? And I said, well, Mr. Graham, call me Bill. Bill, you know, my market is the Stanford, Palo Alto market. It's not the San Francisco. It's not the Janis Joplin, you know, Grateful Dead. I have a different market down here. And really the only difference between me and you is that, in a way, is that I know my market better than you know my market. And I was just delivering to my market. So, you know, you're doing Janis Joplin, I'm doing Gordon Lightfoot. And we're all selling out. We're doing fine. And he said, okay, I have a choice. I either have to hire you or kill you. And if I kill you, I'm going to end up going to jail. I don't want to go to jail. You know, you want to be hired. So I was hired as Jerry's assistant in March of 1975. And my first show was actually Snack. I love seeing Snack. I love Snack. And I stayed there for 24 years.
And I think you told us you had the lowest MBA salary that year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Philip, Molly, any last words you would like to convey about the?
Well, I want to say this is an amazing theater. I think this is the most beautiful theater we've played in terms of the sound quality and picture quality. So,
Well, thank you,
it's a
but you haven't
thrill.
seen the Rafael yet. But we own
can't
them
wait.
both, so
Can't
we
wait.
can tell
Can't
you
wait.
about that.
I wanted
to
to
be
say
here. Thank
one
you
thing
so
about
much.
But in
Frank Barcelona.
2024, we'll start construction on this one, and it will be as good as the Rafael.
Okay.
All right. I wanted to say something about Frank Barcelona. He was one of the nicest people you will ever meet. I mean, in a business filled with an enormous amount of assholes, he definitely was not one. He was a great guy. He knew the name of almost every kid that worked at the Fillmore East. Every single one. And he was down there all the time. And he was loved by everyone, me included.
Yeah, we've heard that a lot. We've heard that a lot.
I want to thank you all and thank you especially for this incredible film, and keep us informed of where it is and tell your friends about it.
Thank you, and thanks for being a great audience. It was fun.
All right, thank you.
I have a question for you.